That's James's meal for today. It's fried rice, and he will be talking about these books again a little bit after I talk about Magpie Murders. And I meant to talk about Dead Again yesterday, and I think I ran out of time, so I'm just going to touch on that a bit. I'm going to be talking about mysteries and like suspense versus gore movies, that sort of thing. And I'm going to refer back to notes that I made quite a while ago about, it was a great course, Understanding the Dark Side of Human Nature by Professor Daniel Breyer.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah. And so I have two movies, or show. The Magpie Murders is actually like a mini-series sort of thing. And then I have the zombie movie, which it's not a great example for gore because honestly the makeup and stuff was really bad. So I have watched very much more gory movies than that. But here we go.
Not just recently, you're talking about your whole lifetime.
Yeah, but recently I watched the most gory movie I've
Well,
seen,
that was pretty incredible. I think
gory.
I know which one
like,
you're talking about.
It was like, they must have had it on a timer. They're like, okay, we haven't shown some hardcore gore for 5 minutes, so we got to punch that in now. And it just kept coming. You know, but anyway, I can't remember what the movie was called, and I don't really care. Well, I should care because I should try to remember so I don't watch the next one. Because honestly,
they do have sequels for a lot of horror movies, don't they? Yeah.
And I think the one that I watched was a sequel from one. So it must have been popular amongst people. But anyway, this is from Lecture 24, and he was talking about horror movies and stuff like that. That was Daniel Breyer. Gore watcher personality types characterized by low empathy, low fearfulness, and high adventure seeking. They don't have dramatic effect responses to watching the graphic horror, even though they watch a lot of gory movies. Gore watchers, they tend to have double standards regarding what's appropriate for men versus women. They prefer seeing scenes with female victims. They tend to relate with the killer, not with the victim. They tend to be male. They have a vengeful interest.
Is that true? That's amazing.
Yep.
I always, I'm not a big fan, but I was identify with a woman trying to get away.
Yeah, well, there you go. Thrill watchers, number 2. This personality type is characterized by high levels of empathy and high levels of adventure seeking. Thrill watchers watch for suspense. They identify with the victim. Both types have high levels of adventure seeking, though, which is interesting. The third type, independent watchers, don't really care for violence or suspense. They watch for the social role where they test their maturity and demonstrate those qualities to others. They want to see if they can take it. They want to overcome their fear and show this to others. They identify with victims but have a positive outlook and experience high effect both before and after watching the horror movie. And I used to be more of an independent watcher when I was young. And I was realizing that my Christian upbringing was not making me, was not preparing me for the world at large. And so I was watching, some friends introduced me to horror movies, which I found very scary, so I doubt I watched very much of them. But then I'd watch horror stuff, like Poltergeist, I like that, the series. And, what else did I watch? Anyway, I liked Alfred Hitchcock Presents, but that's not really horror, that's suspense. But anyway, I'd watch those things and I'd just watch them over and over until I knew the whole script, so it really wasn't scary anymore. Anyway, problem watchers. This is the fourth type. Also watch to identify with victims, but they do not enjoy horror films. Problem watchers' identification with the victim may have more to do with their own perceived helplessness. They feel angry and lonely and experience negative effect both before and after watching the horror film. And I could talk more, like he was talking about how, well, you know what, I think I'll talk about that at a different time. He was talking about or you could watch it actually. It's well worth watching this great course, and it comes with a booklet, but to get all the information you have to watch, because not everything is in the booklet. Usually there's more in the DVDs than there is in the book.
Much more.
Much more. So you have to watch and you have to take notes. And he was talking about blood pressure and how that affects to what type you are, which is really interesting, like about the adventure seeking stuff. So anyway, I guess I'll get going on to that. I'll say that as well as you may have noticed, I certainly have, that the Brits are really good at making mysteries. They make loads of them. So that tells me there must be a lot of British people watching mysteries, you know, and well, I guess
or reading them, like
or
Agatha Christie,
whatever,
Marjorie
or people. And I know I don't know if this is common with other cultures, but it seems that the Brits make mysteries and they make them well, and that tells me that the audience are more of the second type, right? Or possibly the other, that we identify with the victims, is what I'm saying. We don't identify with the killers. The people that have a British background, or, you know, Canadians were part of the extended, under the umbrella of the British monarchy, I guess, or whatever. And that actually tells me a lot about not the rulers of the British Empire, who aren't British at all, but the people. And I think people should really review that when they're thinking about whether we're our ancestors or whatever British people from the British Isles, whether they were really colonizers or if they were really victims who were displaced from their native lands. Anyway.
Well, what's the modern day term for that? Refugees.
Yeah. So, anyway, and then Dead Again, it was really bad. It's a really bad zombie movie. Nobody should watch it. And it was like they were trying to copy Shaun of the Dead, which was a good zombie movie. That was funny, and this one was not funny. And it was really badly done. And it just ended at 75 minutes, which is a little premature. And it's like they realized that they should just give up and stop and just put it out, because it's garbage. So bad. But Magpie Murders. This one, I should have caught the mystery. And there's a lot of mysteries that have been put on TV that you watch them and you're like, well, nobody could have caught that mystery because you didn't give enough information beforehand. Well, that's not a mystery at all, you know? And the main character in this, she's editor of a book, and she's like, people watch the mysteries to find out who did it. It's like, I don't really think they do. They want to find out that that people aren't going to get away with killing other people or treating them badly or whatever. They want to see that there's somebody out there who's actually going to look at the truth, follow it along, and not be misled into believing anything else than the truth. And so you have to, as a mystery watcher, you have to be able to follow that along too and go, oh yeah, you know, I see it. And that the mystery solver saw it too, and that person is not getting away with it. And that's what's most important with the mystery. When you don't have that, it's not a mystery. It's garbage. And your viewers aren't going to like it. But this one, there was a couple points when I should have caught it, but I didn't, and they were fast. And they were parts where I guess they were just things that, I'm not going to give it away, but things that people would say day to day, and you don't really pay mind to it. And but it gave it away. And when the mystery was solved at the end, I was like, why didn't I catch that? You know, because it was there. But anyway, that's what you need. You need the mystery. You need the person watching the mystery to be able to follow it and have a chance at solving it themselves. They want to feel like they, even if they didn't solve it, at the end they want to feel like I did. Like, oh, I should have caught that. And it was right there. And luckily we have this great detective who figured it out, right? So that's all I really have to say about that right now. And James can go on and talk about his other stuff.
So, started talking about these the other day, a while back, maybe it was yesterday, I can't remember.
It's been a while.
Anyway, Rebel with a Cause, Franklin Graham, an autobiography, and Johnny L. Cochran with Tim Rutten. So I think Franklin Graham is claiming he wrote this. It looks as though Johnny L. Cochran, despite the fact that was, at least according to him, tops in his class all the way along, couldn't be bothered to write
There it goes.
autobiography.
Dominoes.
Yeah. He did sign this here, you know. The guy's a little weasel. You know, he claims he's does things for Bright Times for free, kind of like as a public service or something like that.
Well, they all do the pro bono sort of things, don't they? When they
Well, I mean, it's like advertisement.
Yeah.
You've noticed it. You know, when I was talking about media folks doing stuff for charity, and you were saying, well, that's just advertising for themselves. And you said, yeah, I've noticed that a long time ago. And, yeah. I had to have it kind of like pointed out to me. But, so here he is, along with Larry King. Larry King's dead. Kind of mediocrity. I don't think he's a bad guy, no. But here he is. Johnny L. Cochran's trying to make up for getting OJ off. Among the many cases we will be pursuing, I don't know what happened, in our search for justice is the Reginald Denny civil trial. Here, Reginald, and you can see how small this poor Reginald Denny is, and I are flanking Larry King. So I don't think Johnny L. Cochran's the tallest guy in the world. Here's this poor Reginald Denny. I remember Reginald Denny. This is in the wake of the Rodney King, what they call the beating, and he did get beaten. I don't know what he did to get the cops riled up. Cops, from what I've seen, are typical city workers. They don't like doing extra work. And they were pretty energetic at beating and kicking Rodney King. Something got them riled up. There was a variety of different ones involved.
Oh boy.
I don't know what Rodney King did, but I suspect there's a bit of a backstory. Reginald Denny, in the wake of the Rodney King beating, he drove into the wrong area of the Los Angeles sprawl. He was a truck driver. So a bunch of folks who would be like, you know, like have the attitude of a hip hop artist, they dragged him out, made it, I think it was a helicopter cam or something like that that caught the fun action, and they beat him. And I don't know if Rodney King suffered any long-term physical effects. Guess what? Reginald Denny apparently did. You know, like suffered, I hope it wasn't long-term, but brain damage. They beat him so badly. Of course, I was listening to a BBC program the other day, fed through the CBC. The interviewer was talking about hip-hop and saying how revolutionary it was. Hip-hop is not revolutionary. It's devolutionary. Now, I don't believe in revolution. I do believe in evolution, in the sense of things getting better and making them better carefully, slowly, so you're not doing treatments that are worse than the condition they're supposed to be for. That's what communism does. Treatment way worse than the condition of capitalism. So Reginald, then, he will be pursuing it. My attitude towards Johnny L. Cochran, when he might have done some good deeds way back when. Originally he was a prosecutor, and then he figured he could make more money defending people, or rich people like O.J. Simpson. Some of his stuff would have been civil rights cases. O.J. Simpson bought his way to freedom. I consider Johnny L. Cochran's role in O.J. Simpson trial as being that of something like a mob lawyer. Mob lawyers are slime buckets. Johnny L. Cochran's role in getting O.J. Simpson off was ethically like that of a mob lawyer. Mobsters should not be there. Every lawyer who's got any sort of ability should tell mobsters, I'm not representing you. I'm sorry, I don't care how much money you come up with. I'm not representing you. That's what every lawyer should have said, including Alan Dershowitz and what was his name? Carl Shapiro or Alan Shapiro. Carl Shapiro, I think, is a poet. He was a celebrity lawyer. They all should have said, no, we're not representing you, OJ. We can see that you were a bad guy. Back when you were a kid, before you became a huge football star, you were running your own little gang. Where was that? In the Bay Area in California?
Well, everyone deserves legal representation.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. In our system. And what should have happened with OJ, what should happen with mobsters is, okay, no one's representing you. You can't buy injustice, not justice. And we're going to assign this rookie lawyer.
That would have to be the same for everyone then. So everyone would have to just be assigned a lawyer.
Well,
and you'd have to make sure that it's just luck of the draw.
Really, it should be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it should be. Anyway, you'd end up with a lot fewer specialist lawyers, right? Mm-hmm. They're good with languages or whatever. They'd find some sort of useful use for them themselves instead of earning huge coin defending people like Donald Trump, mobsters, O.J. Simpson, so on and so forth. Rebel with a cause. Yeah. Wearing Harley Davidson thing. I think he's wearing cowboy boots. I'd sure like to see this idiot driving around a motorcycle, a Harley or whatever, with his... I think he actually, despite the Harley jacket, drives around Japanese bikes. Not Kawasaki. What was he mentioning? I can't remember. Honda. I don't know if Honda makes the bikes. Anyway, this guy's the son of... He might still be alive. Probably is. Should have died of embarrassment a while back. The son of Billy Graham, who was one of my dad's big heroes. I was raised fundamentalist. I gave that up when I was about 17. Before I hit university, so my parents wouldn't misunderstand that it was university that triggered my skepticism. But well,
I doubt they would have thought that, James, because
so I thought that with my brother.
Oh,
okay.
But they were university trained.
they did that just to become teachers. Like my mother actually wasn't university trained. She just went to what was called normal school, which should be the equivalent of college.
Oh, interesting.
That's why she moved from Alberta. Once all the kids made it into school, she wanted to go back to teaching again. And she couldn't teach in Alberta because they required at that point in time, I think something like 1974, they required at 73, I'd say, they required that you have a university degree to teach. Whereas she taught in Saskatchewan, they might have had the same rule in Saskatchewan, but she had taught in Saskatchewan, way back when, and so she could teach there. And she taught there for quite a while. Until she reached retirement age, I guess. So, I don't know when that would have been, 78 to 80. Anyway, there are some interesting pictures in here. A rattlesnake that got killed by a fella. He was raised, even though he's from the south, or not even, one of his favorite persons, a black woman, would be serving as a domestic servant, not as a slave. This is after the slave era, but 1954. So this is before the civil rights movement really took hold. That was only 10 years later. But she seems like a nice person, and he talks about loving her and so on and so forth. So what was her name? Beatrice Lang. Wouldn't be a very sensible name for Germans. Really didn't have slaves early on. I think there are more people of German ancestry than of English ancestry in the United States. It's a little bit different than I think in Canada. I think that's one of the reasons why there's a difference in culture in the United States. So you end up with flunkies of German ancestry like Donald Trump, for example. The Germans just don't have a long-term tradition of democracy the way the English folks have. So here he is with his dad and Walt Disney. So there's a lot of star schmucking, we'll say here. Walt Disney. Here he is, his beloved Triumph TR6, 1971. So that was, he was born 1952, circa 19 years old. This guy's a critter of privilege, so that's a sports car. And I guess he'd be just out of high school. I got my first car when I was something like 56 years old. So all through university, high school, stuff like that, had to use buses or just walk to school. Here's a fellow who was kind of a bad guy until he reformed his ways. He became a Christian, and David Hill is his name. Gun in boot. I think that's for show because it should be in his holster, but maybe he's really ready for his evening message. So he's studying his Bible. During the Rhodesian War in Bulawayo, I've been in Bulawayo actually, 1973. We cleared out of the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland 9 years before that. It was looking as though it was melting down. Anyway, I suspect he was more on the side of Ian Smith. Now, when it comes to Ian Smith going up against Robert Mugabe, I'm a relative agnostic when it comes to which side I'd pull for. I know which side I was pulling for back then, but that's when I didn't really know what Robert Mugabe was like. Robert Mugabe possibly was more of a racist than Ian Smith, and I'm not just talking about being anti-white and Ian Smith anti-black. You ask a person, Mugabe was Shona, you ask a person of Matabele ancestry what they think of Mugabe, they're probably not terribly impressed. So, and then, when you actually look at competence, I don't know. Under Ian Smith, I don't know if there are too many famines. Mugabe, around 2000, a little bit after. famine. That's what what commies typically do. They want to take over the land from farmers that actually know what they're doing. They give it to people who don't have a clue, and then they have a famine. Ooh, like the Russians had that early on. Not just the one that was induced by Stalin around 1930. They had one early on. Check the books out. Here's the idiot on. He's on a long-term motorcycle race or something like that. Dude, you're still alive, Franklin Graham. You two, they did some stupid things like Bullet the Blue Sky and stuff like that. They're pulling for Ortega. Ortega's still around, and like someone I kind of respect. A PhD said to me recently, "Oh, Ortega changed." No, he didn't. Ask the people. There's some people, indigenous people in the northeastern part of Nicaragua. They're called the Mosquito people. It's spelled almost like mosquito, but it's a little bit different. And Ortega was doing ethnic cleansing / genocide back in the 80s. You getting that, Bono? I almost feel like calling it Bozo. But one thing Bono said was, he's a Christian, but he says somewhere, it's recorded, I think in a live performance, "The God I believe in, mister, ain't short of cash." The God you should believe in, Mr. Franklin, thinks that people who waste gas, storming around places, doing Lord only knows what to the environment, he ain't impressed. He ain't impressed. Here he is, more star schmucking. Roy Rogers, and where's Dale Evans? There's Dale Evans. Roy Rogers was one of my heroes when I was a kid, but that was a long, long time ago. I think I preferred Trigger, actually, to Roy Rogers.
The cat's huge.
What was that?
The cat's huge.
The gray one?
The black one. I've never seen that one.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, he's a big guy. You don't want our chihuahuas.
No, with that. Much bigger. Bigger than Opie. Opie's pretty big.
Oh, yeah, that guy just tear Opie apart and rip his ears up. So, who else is he hanging with? Oh, here he's giving out members of the Contra, speaking of Nicaragua, the Contra Army, Chaplains Corps. So these would be chaplains. What time is it? How much time is left in?
You have 1 minute.
Yeah. Men and women that we had the privilege of training. So they're training chaplains. These would be people who are against Ortega. And I've gotten to the point now with Ortega and what he's doing there in Nicaragua, where I'm not just, in retrospect, agnostic about what was happening in Nicaragua. He was the bad guy. Somoza and his flunkies, the Contras, were pretty bad, but nuance. So here's Colin Powell, more star schmucking. George Bush Sr., Ricky Skaggs, who should know better, with all of his 3 chins. You put an apple in his mouth and he looked like a roast pig.